So first of all, I will just give you a brief introduction, what we're going to talk about today. I'll talk about myself, first of all. Then we will talk about the components of the course, the various elements of the course. We'll move on to the assignments that you have to do. We'll have a kind of a discussion about teaching methodology used on the course, and various other aspects of communicative language teaching, as opposed to a more traditional style of teaching. And finally, we will sum up and we will give you some more information about the course. So a combination of course information and teaching methodology and ideas. So I hope it's useful for people who are interested in coming on a course and for people who are just interested in teaching English. So just a brief introduction of myself. So yes, I'm from London. I did CertTESOL in 1996 after finishing university, a few years in the wilderness, not knowing what to do, and eventually came across Trinity CertTESOL, which I did, and immediately started working in London. I wouldn't have been able to get my job if I hadn't had that certificate, which is true in most of the good schools now. If you don't have a level 5 qualification, they won't accept you. I worked in London for a few years before heading off to Brazil, where I worked mainly as a business English teacher, but also lots of one-to-one classes. I worked in Rio de Janeiro in a quite a reputable school, Cultura Inglesa. And again, without Trinity Cert, I wouldn't have been offered that position. I spent a year there. It was a lovely experience. After that, I moved back to London. Eventually, around 2000, I went to live in the Czech Republic, and I worked for another good school, International House, which was quite surprising because even though I had been teaching for 4 years, I had never really been observed until that point. I had been observed once before. And so I had developed my own style of teaching, which was very grammar-based, basically. I thought if I taught my students the present perfect or the past simple, the past continuous, that was all there was to teaching English. At International House, I learned there was much, much more to teaching English, including phonology, working on pronunciation, lexis, vocabulary, chunks of language, reading skills, a whole variety of things which I hadn't bothered looking at before. I developed my own style. I was quite a popular teacher, but I wasn't really doing as good a job as I should have been for my students. Lots of teachers become very self-satisfied with the praise of their students. The students tell the teacher, "You are the best teacher we've ever had, sir." And the teacher believes them, okay, and doesn't progress. So even if you are a good teacher, even if you have been teaching for a long time, I think everybody understands that there's always something to learn in teaching, especially these days with the lockdown and everybody being forced into teaching online, which has opened up a whole new world of ideas and necessities and needs and impossibilities. Lots of the methodology, we have to change lots of our activities and the way we work, but we can still employ a communicative methodology where we teach. It doesn't have to go back to chalk and talk. I came back to London after 2002, and I worked for the local educational authority teaching in state school, teaching ESOL, which is for people who live in England and use English as a second language. There I got involved in curriculum design, creating courses for English for engineering students, English for computer maintenance students, English for hairdressing students. Okay, so we developed syllabus schemes of work for students who are studying English with another subject, which kind of lends in to a more kind of task-based approach to teaching, which we kind of employ here to a certain degree. I worked for the local authority for a long time. That's where I did my Delta qualification, which changed the way I taught. Delta diploma, Trinity diploma, very, very similar. They both cover the same areas. After that, I went to work for the British Council in Vietnam, where I got involved in teacher training, working on outreach projects, teaching Vietnamese English language teachers, the communicative approach to teaching. I became a line manager when I was in the British Council. I moved to China from there, and I worked at a university as a EAP teacher, English for academic purposes, in a university in Shanghai, where I was responsible for the speaking program and the listening skills development program for the students. As well as that, I've had lots of other jobs. I've worked in London for a long time. I started with Trinity in 2011 in London as a course tutor, where I had to shadow the course director on a number of courses before I was allowed to take a class myself. So a good thing about Trinity is that they ensure standards. There's programs to become a trainer on a Trinity CertTESOL program. You can't just walk in and do this. You have to shadow the director for a number of times, and there's other procedures you have to go through. So it's quite a big step up in your teaching career. I worked in London for Trinity, and then after a few years, I went to Spain, where I was the course director for a while in Malaga. I moved to Italy, where I was the director of a school, not teacher training, just the director of studies. I came here in 2018 and have been the course director at Trinity TESOL, and from last year, the course director for Trinity Diploma. So we run CertTESOL every 5 weeks in this school, and once a year, at the end of the year, we run the diploma face-to-face sessions. And so that's my life story, basically. So as you can see, the initial step of taking CertTESOL was responsible for that career. Okay. Okay, we just move on now. Okay, so why is Trinity TESOL such a great qualification to have? So as you can see from my personal experience, that's where it started, doing the initial teacher training course. It's a great course as you get to meet lots of nice people, you get to travel around the world. It's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful thing to do if it's for the long term or even for the short term, but we'll come back to that later. See here, these are all of the Trinity TESOL and diploma centres around the world. Go all over the world. There's some missing from here, actually. We've got one in Myanmar now, and there's some in South America, in Brazil, in Rio de Janeiro, we have a centre, and I think in Paraguay, maybe Uruguay. So there are some missing, but Trinity is definitely growing as a company for English language teaching, which is expanding every year on year. We need more and more language teachers, English language teachers. So the need is increasing. So it's still a very good industry to get involved in. As you can see, we're all over the world with Trinity, but there is something similar about all of the centres. We have to follow the Trinity syllabus. So Trinity provide us with a syllabus, and we have to cover all of the areas concerning all of the skills areas, the systems areas, and grammar, vocabulary, and phonology. We have to cover certain areas on the course. Every course has to cover these, and certain ideas about methodology and training and teaching techniques. So they're all the same. The courses are very similar, but of course there's local flavour on each course. We have to take into consideration the local market. Kerala is very different. The teaching needs in Kerala are very different from the teaching needs in Rio de Janeiro. People are learning English for different reasons. So our training course has to mirror that, and it has to cater for the people who teach in Kerala, but also cater for people who want to travel outside of India. So we've had lots of trainees here who've gone on to work in many countries around the world. Lots of the trainees here, they go to the Middle East, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Oman, particularly at the moment. So there's lots of work in the Middle East where the money is good and the conditions are good. Other trainees who've gone to the Far East, so we've had some people go to Japan and even China, although it's not so easy for Indian people to go to China. It's not impossible, but Vietnam is a good bet there. And there is work in Thailand, Indonesia. I think in Indonesia you need a B.Ed as well. So there's lots of work. We've had lots of people go to South America as well, to Chile, Colombia. So there's work all around the world for people. But in India, we have our own specific teaching content. Many of the teachers who come to CILA, or the people who come to CILA, they will have to teach IELTS. So we have a strong focus on IELTS teaching, on how to write essays, how to write more academic English. Okay, so nearly everybody who comes here will end up teaching IELTS at some point, mainly for immigration purposes, etc., etc. We have lots of nurses who come here as well. Yeah, okay. We'll move to the next slide. Okay, so the Trinity CertTESOL is designed for those with little or no experience of teaching English, and for those with experience who require an internationally recognised teacher education qualification. It equips candidates with the basic skills and knowledge needed to take up the post as an ESL teacher. It gives an in-depth knowledge into the theory and practice of English teaching, and an insight into the challenges facing the learner and the role of the teacher. The CertTESOL is rated at level 5 on Ofqual's regulated qualifications framework, comparable level to the second year of an undergraduate degree, and comprises a minimum of 30 hours in class guided tuition time, with an expected minimum of 70 hours further study related to total qualification time, which is 200 hours. So just coming back to the first point here, we have some teachers here, some people here, trainees here, who have never taught 1 minute of their life. And we have other people here who've been teaching for 8 years, 9 years, and they're just looking for maybe to change their approach to teaching, to change their methodology, and also sometimes just to get the piece of paper, the qualification, which is an important factor, of course, for immigration purposes, all different types of things. It opens many doors, CertTESOL, especially with if you progress and move on to doing diploma. We've had people here who've gone on to become IELTS examiners, which is a nice role to have. So there's lots of progression, career opportunities like that. And so there's lots of opportunities for differentiation in practice in the class, as we have people with no experience and some people with lots of experience. Everybody's getting something different from the course. Some people are learning the fundamentals, how to give instructions clearly. Some people are learning about rate of speech, pausing while you speak, asking concept checking questions, instruction checking questions. So some people gain lots from that. Other people gain more from the idea of activating schemata. Maybe implementing more of a inductive approach into their teaching style. So everybody's getting something, but there's a real sense of community on the course, because the more experienced people are helping the less experienced people. The less experienced people are giving us all their enthusiasm, which is much needed sometimes, and fresh ideas as well, because times are changing. Younger people, new ideas, they bring new ideas to the table, especially with computers. I'm a dinosaur in relation to most of the young trainees who come to CILA now. So I'm learning lots from them. I learn lots from watching the trainees' lessons still now. And I think that's a key thing that you can learn on this course, is learning by observing others teach. I think I became a better teacher. I know I became a much better teacher when I started teacher training. I started observing others teach on a regular basis, because then I could really see what was going right in their lesson, first of all, what was going, and things they could change as well. Every lesson, no lesson is perfect, is it? So you can really learn by watching other people and thinking about it in a positive manner, and thinking and also thinking about weaknesses as well. And that's a very important aspect of this course, is that you are obliged to observe your peers when they teach and give them constructive feedback. So there's a real feeling of, you're a cohort of teachers. You're not individuals. You're not a collection of individuals. You're a cohort. You're a group. You're working through the course together. People who do work with their classmates and peers, they do better. They get a better result. Coming to the third point there, so the level 5 aspect is very important for many different reasons. Immigration purposes for one reason, for entry into decent schools. Most of the qualification, there are only 2 really. Trinity TESOL is one of them, which are level 5. They're the only ones really accepted by the British Council, by the good schools around the world. Also, it counts on the British system for further education points and stuff like that. So it's very valuable in regards to that. It's a very, very intensive course, as you can see. Generally speaking, we run over 5 weeks, occasionally 4.5. But there's a lot to do. There's a lot on the Trinity syllabus that we have to cover. So as you can imagine, it's a very intensive course. 130 hours in class. So we do lots of input sessions on the systems of English, so on the grammar, the phonology, and the lexis. And then we also look at skills as well. So we will show you how to organise a reading lesson, how to organise a listening lesson, how to develop listening skills effectively, how to present and practice grammar points. Even though we don't specifically teach grammar points, grammar is often an integral part of the lesson, although it might be the main aim. The main aim of the lesson will not be to teach them the present perfect, but we will cover the present perfect in the lesson. So most of this 170 hours here, a lot of that time will be spent on researching the mother tongue of your students in your class. So you'll get to know what anticipated problems are likely to arise in their class. Also, improving your own knowledge of English by researching another language. You can learn a lot about your own language. I'm still learning English now. Much of the 70 hours will be spent on lesson planning. So lesson planning is a big jump, especially for teachers who have been teaching for a long time and are used to doing the same thing again and again. Lesson planning can be quite a shock for people, and people spend hours lesson planning. The key to writing a good lesson is to picture the end of your lesson. What will be happening at the end of my lesson? Describe the end of your lesson in your main aim to your class. So at the end of the lesson, the students will be able to take part in a job interview using a broader range of vocabulary and the present perfect more accurately. Something like that. So that would be the aim of your lesson. So the aim of the lesson here is not to learn the present perfect. The aim of the lesson is to take part in a job interview using appropriate vocabulary and more accurate use of the present perfect. So we're not going to go crazy on the present perfect, but we'll talk about that in a minute. This is a different approach to teaching. Grammar is not always primary, but it's very important. Yes, so by the end of the course, you will have a bank of lessons, bank of lesson plans, and a bank of activities which you can use again. You can adapt them and use them later on. Good lessons never really happen in the first time. Normally, the lesson is good after about 3 or 4 attempts. After you can tinker with it. There's change this bit, change that bit. Okay, so we get lots of different types of people who come onto the course. Some people just looking for a career change. Maybe they studied engineering at university, or computer programming or something like that. But then they find themselves a bit bored sitting in front of a computer all day, and they want to have a job where they get to speak to people and communicate with people. And that's a great thing about teaching, is that every day you're with other people, you communicate. It's your job to talk to other people and have fun and to get them to be creative with language and educate them as well. So it's a wonderful job in that respect. You can meet people from all around the world and have fun. You're your own boss, essentially, in the classroom. In most schools, not in all schools, but in many schools. So there's a certain amount of freedom. You can be creative. So it's nice for a career change for lots of people in that regard. Even retired people come on the course. I had a trainee who was 70 years old who came on the course, and she's happily teaching away to this day. So as well as people who want to change their career, we get lots of people who are already teachers. Veterans of the Maldives or the Philippines. So people who've been teaching for a number of years already, but still using kind of an antiquated chalk and talk, teacher-centered lecture style of English language teaching. The teacher is at the front of the class. The teacher is the font of all wisdom, and the students sit around and write down what they catch. But unfortunately, well, there is a time and a place for this, of course, and sometimes there is so much on the syllabus that you do have to speed up at certain moments and create, and the communicative aspect will be lost. But even in a class with 50 people, 60 people, there's still room for communicative activities. Regardless of how many people, you can still employ a communicative methodology. Maybe not the whole time, but there are tricks and techniques which you can use to make it more communicative and give the learners the practice. Because I think the teacher here, often the teacher is very skilled, the teacher's knowledge is deep. People come to CILA, they have MA in linguistics is not uncommon for people to hold MA in linguistics and to have taught for a long PGCSE or BEd, lots of people like that, but they're still stuck in more of a lecture kind of role. So the students aren't really talking to each other. It's a deductive approach to teaching. Here we use more of an inductive approach to teaching. We want the students talking to each other. The students are working out the rules themselves in groups. The teacher is more of a facilitator in this kind of role, although, of course, the teacher has many roles in the classroom. But we like to see an inductive approach here, the students talking. I think the official figures were the teacher should be talking for about 10% of the time. The students should be talking for 90% of the time. Now, to me, that's always seemed slightly idealistic, especially for new teachers. But you know, if you can get it to 15%, 20%, I think that's a good way to go. I mean, it depends on the lesson, obviously, but we really want the students working out using an inductive approach. The students talking to each other, the students developing their own interlanguage, the students learning from each other. The teacher cannot teach 50 people, it's impossible. But if you put them in groups of 4, they can start teaching each other. The strong ones, the weak ones. The teacher can go and guide them. It's easier to talk to 4 people than 50 people. So you give them a task. While they're busy doing the task, you go and talk to individual groups. And then you can have a feedback session at the end with everybody. In a sense, it's pointless even trying to teach 50 people at one go. How many will really listen? How many will really follow you? Only the ones who are interested. The rest, they'll just sit and chew their pen and watch the clock, like I used to do in science when I was at school. Sit and watch the clock and hold my breath. See how long I could hold my breath for. I was not engaged in the lesson. It was just the teacher talking. I had little motivation to pay attention. I had no motivation to pay attention. Only the bright kids did. Okay, the rest of us didn't care. So it's, you know, I think those days of teaching are gone. We can't leave people, you know, like me, my younger self, sitting there. The teacher has to try and engage the students more. So we have to choose topics which are interesting for the learners. And if the subject isn't so interesting, then we have to find interesting teaching methods, bring competition into the classroom, self-discovery, ranking activities, put the students in groups, make it into a class competition, give them a task. But most importantly, put them together, get them to help each other, teach each other, especially for language and linguistics. We learn by speaking to other people, essentially. So we don't want these lessons with people just being taught grammar rules, running over the same grammar rules again and again and again. Although grammar is important, as I said, it's not everything. Pronunciation is very, very important. And vocabulary is important as well. So we need to look at all of these 3 different elements of the English language. Okay, so So the third category or class of people that we have coming to the course are these kind of people, like the kind of person I was when I was younger. I didn't really know what to do. Okay, so you've done your education, you're finished with that, you're looking for something to do. So we get lots of people like that. And this is a great course for somebody who's just finished university, either BA or MA, because you don't have to stay in teaching for the rest of your life. But it's a great thing to do in the meantime, you know, while you're deciding what you want to do with the rest of your life. It's a good life experience, life skills experience. As I said before, you get to travel. You can go anywhere in the world with the CertTESOL, really. So it can be a ticket to ride to lots of different cultures, lots of different experiences. Also, you learn about the workplace, you learn about life, you learn about people. So I think it's a great thing for lots of people. It's a great thing if you've just finished higher education as well, and you get to learn about an interesting subject as well. English is a fascinating subject. The more you know, the more complex it gets, I think. So we're just going to look at course content now. So the main course content is delivered and assessed through 5 units. The work for units 1, 2, and 3, and 5 is marked by your internal course tutors and moderated or sampled and checked by a member of the Trinity Moderators panel at the end of every course. The moderator externally assesses the work for unit 4. So at the end of every course, we have a representative from Trinity College who you will meet on the course. Sometimes they come here in person, so you'll have an interview with them, or sometimes it will be online. But you'll just speak to them for 10 to 15 minutes about the course and about some materials that you created for the course. We'll come back to that. So we mark 90% of your coursework, etc. And then this is moderated by Trinity. So this keeps up the standards. This ensures all of the centres around the world are abiding to the laws of Trinity, following the rules, implementing what they're supposed to be doing, following the syllabus, and take any complaints you may have. So ensure that we're keeping our standards up. So that kind of sets Trinity above or apart from many other courses which are not regulated. If you go on another course, there's no regulation from a central authority. There's no consequence for them not doing their job properly. So that's why it's very important. We are regulated by a registered charity. So we're not here just for the money. Right? We'll go through these one by one. So this is the most important element of the course. This is teaching. That's why we're here, essentially, to look at teaching. So on the course, your teaching practice grade. At CILA, we will give you a grade and a certificate from A to C. Yeah, A to C, and then it will be found. We will give you a certificate, but Trinity do not offer grades at cert level. Trinity just have pass or fail. Okay, so the important certificate is just pass or fail. We will grade you. We have very specific criteria for our grades, which we will give you. We'll give you the marking criteria if you choose to do the course. So on the course, you will have to teach for 6 hours. You teach 2 different levels, or maybe 3 different levels. Generally speaking, we teach A2, so it's elementary, or B1, intermediate, or sometimes B2, which could be upper intermediate. So on the course, you have to teach 2 different levels, so it'll be A2 or B1. We use a course book. So in many centres, the trainees are not given course books to work with. So it's difficult to plan your lessons without a course book. But here we give you a course book and we allow you to use the course book to plan your lessons because it adds structure to the course for the people you'll be teaching. And also it helps you. that's the positive side of that. The negative side of that is we don't want you to become reliant on using a course book. So we do encourage you to adapt the course book and to create your own materials as well, which is vitally important. But a good course book can help you. So this will help. This will help, especially in your initial lessons when you're unsure of what to do or how to do it. You will be able to use a course book. So most of the trainees say this is the most valuable part of the course, actually, because you get to teach real students in real time. And that's it. We don't really learn by listening to somebody talking about teaching. We learn by doing it. You get up and you do your lesson, and then afterwards you speak with your tutor and your peers, and then we discuss your lesson. And this is how you get better. So on a 5-week course, we learn as we go. We learn on the job. So your lessons will get better and progressively better and better as the course continues. By the end of the course, we will feel comfortable with you going and working independently at another school. That's the aim. So this really is the most important. This really is the most important element of the course. Generally speaking, you have to teach lessons for the receptive skills, so speaking and reading and listening, and for the productive skills, writing and speaking. So that will take up 4 of your classes. Maybe then you could do a lesson with a kind of a grammatical central aim, maybe some functional language, and then something interesting for you. Maybe you could do a lesson based around a song, or you could do a lesson based around a poem. We encourage creativity, so you're not stifled. We encourage you to use your imagination here, as well as go through a course book, which is an important aspect of teaching in most schools. So a journal, so you will also have to keep a journal where you evaluate your lessons. So at the end of your teaching practice every day, or when you teach, you have to write a reflection on your teaching. And this is also really important, that you honestly reflect on your lesson. How did it go? Why did it go like that? What will you do in the next lesson to make sure that doesn't happen again? But not just vague ideas. I will reduce my TTT or my teacher talk time. We want to see how you will do that. So how will you reduce your teacher talk time? Maybe I will have more activities in the lesson. Yeah, I will give the students a game and I'll let them play it by themselves. I won't speak for 5 minutes. Whatever. I want concrete plans, concrete smart targets for the future, not just vague things. So self-reflection is really important, and it's a part of the course, and you need to do that. Okay, and as well as that, you will take part in a language class for 4 hours. But we'll come back to this in a minute, because this is mentioned later on. But basically, on this course, you have to take 4 hours of a language, which will be taught to you in the language without using English. So in the past, we've taught Swahili to students, Cornish. I've seen Welsh classes, Spanish classes. The idea here is not to learn the language. We don't expect you to learn Welsh or Swahili in 4 hours. This is about being part of a communicative classroom and experiencing the techniques used without using the mother tongue of the students. So lots of. I remember when I started teaching, my father was saying, "How can you teach somebody English if you can't speak their language?" It's kind of a good question. Well, this is how you teach people how to speak another language without speaking their language. Okay, it's the direct approach. We use a direct approach to teaching. You don't need to speak the learner's L1. Although we do accept that these days in certain situations, we try to not encourage people to use the L1 on CertTESOL initially. Okay, maybe later on in your teaching career you can experiment with that. But at the beginning, we do try to discourage that at the beginning. So at the end of the course, there is a language awareness task. It's just a 1-hour test. There will be nothing on the test which we haven't covered. So everything that will appear on the test, we will have done. So basically, you have to make sure that you attend all of the input sessions, and then you will have no problem on the test. We very rarely have problems on this. If people do fail this test, there's a backup test for them to take, and it doesn't happen. So just make sure you have to attend. If you don't, you must attend all of the sessions on this course. It's 100% attendance. If people don't attend 100%, they have to supply doctor's notes. Okay, you have to imagine you're here live, right? Okay, this is probably one of my favourite parts of the course, probably. The preparation of a simple linguistic profile and needs analysis, including some basic phonemic transcription of a single learner, the planning of and reflection on a one-to-one lesson, and the preparation of recommendations for a learner's future language development. So in this assignment, basically, you will choose a learner, or we will assign you a learner, and you will have to record them speaking. You'll have to take a sample of their writing. They will do a reading test and a listening test, and then you have to evaluate their English for mistakes or errors with grammar, phonology, and vocabulary. So you have to identify the errors that students are making. And then you have to tell us why they're making these errors. So what is the nature of the error? Why do people make errors when they're speaking a second language? So we're looking at reasons like fossilization, or pre-systematic error, post-systematic error, overgeneralization of a grammar rule, maybe L1 transfer. Okay, so L1 transfer is big, isn't it? Mistakes which arise from the mother tongue. So in India, for example, we have an overuse of ing forms. Where are you coming from, for example, as opposed to where do you come from? Or I am believing you rather than I believe you. So there's an overuse of ing forms, because especially in Malayalam, okay, there's lots of ing forms there. Maybe articles, lack of articles in speaking, the, Okay, so we have to do this. This is quite a complex thing to do, especially if you haven't been trained in language or grammar. So your tutor will be here to help you do this. You'll have individual meetings with your tutor where you will discuss the errors that your student is making. Your tutor will help you identify the errors and classify. But you will also have to do some research on your own. Okay, so you are expected to do a little bit of research to find out what is the present perfect, what errors are. But we will provide you with materials to help you research the language of your student. It takes quite a long time, this assignment, but it's really worthwhile. In the final week, you will give them a one-to-one lesson. You will give your learner a one-to-one lesson based on their strengths and weaknesses and their needs. So maybe your student wants to go to university in Canada. Okay, so maybe you could do a lesson on how to write an essay, university style essay, an IELTS style essay to help them with that. You have to prepare recommendations for the learner's future development. So this is an all-encompassing assignment. And it's a really standout assignment. This is what makes this course a level 5 qualification in a way, because you do need to do some research. But we are here to help you every step of the way with this assignment. You'll get lots and lots of support while you're doing this. The materials assignment, so a written rationale for the development of one piece of teaching material, interview with a Trinity moderator to discuss the above, and the ways in which materials development is beneficial to the development of teaching skills. So on the final day of the course, you will meet the Trinity moderator from Trinity College London, and they will interview you about an activity that you have created yourself for your students. So we have some people, they create reading, true or false reading activities from a local newspaper. We have some people who design listening activities from TED Talks. We have people who create grammar games, maybe roll cards for practice of language. Again, we will assist you with the creation of the materials, but basically it's something that you've used in the class. And you will talk to the moderator about it, why you used it, what were the aims, what were the objectives, was it successful, why not, what would you change, etc., etc. So it's a nice ending to the course. Moderators are very friendly, they're here to help you. They'll do their most to get the best out of you, basically. The materials assignment is very important on this course because we really do want to encourage people to be able to create their own materials rather than just be reliant on the course book. Sometimes the course book may not be relevant for your learners. We are here in Kerala. Sometimes the course book may be too Eurocentric. Okay, it might be about a holiday in Switzerland or something. The learners may not be interested in that. Learners here in Kerala, they're interested in Kerala often. At the moment, we're doing lots of lessons on COVID-19. Okay, this is relevant. We can use a text. We can explore language in a text about COVID-19. This makes the learning more relevant to the learners. If it's more relevant, the learners will be more engaged in the class. If it's about a dragon boat race, every year we have dragon boat races here, the students are enthused by the reading material. If it's current affairs, something which is important for the learners, they're going to be engaged in the lesson, and therefore the language learning or the skills learning will be more memorable for them. So we do encourage trainees and teachers to create their own materials, while of course following the structure of the course book and using a course book. There are many good things in that course books, but we need a combination of both. In the Indian context, for example, Indian learners have great vocabulary, much higher than average B1 students. So a B1 student in Spain or Czech Republic or wherever would not have the same vocabulary probably as an Indian learner, because English is everywhere in India. And so we have to grade up our vocabulary. Often the course book is just not tough enough with the vocabulary. We have to supplement the vocabulary in the course book. So this is great. And also when you design your own materials, you gain a deeper understanding of teaching practice, what makes a reading activity work, what's important when designing a reading task, kind of ideas of synonymy, saying the same thing in a different way. So if you design your own reading activity, then you become more aware of what the examiners are looking for. You can make the students more aware of that. You can, so this is a really important area. If you design your own roll cards for a free practice speaking activity, you can understand more about communicative need or information gap, this kind of element. So I think it's a really excellent part of the course. And finally, we've got Unit 5, which is the Unknown Language Journal, which I talked about before. This is where you learn Swahili or Spanish. Okay. Moving on to the timetable. So this is a kind of average timetable for our course. Yeah, so as you can see, this is actually week 3. So this is halfway through the course. The first week of the course, the input sessions will be more technical teaching things, like how to give instructions, or how to check meaning, how to present vocabulary, how to present grammar, this kind of thing, kind of more technical things. Then, as we go on in the course, we start looking at other aspects. But you can see in the morning, generally speaking, in the morning, we do we teach in the morning. So if there's 2 people will teach normally, 2 people will teach. So maybe in a teaching group, there will be 4 teachers. 2 will teach, 2 will observe. The next day, 2 will teach, 2 will observe. So like that, they'll take it in turns. So if you're not teaching, you'll be observing your peers and taking notes. In the afternoon, you can see from 3 to 4, this is where we do feedback. So we feedback on the lesson. So we sit as a group, no more than 5. So each teaching group, there'll be 4 or 5 people. So 4 trainees, 1 tutor in each group. And then you'll discuss the lesson. You'll discuss your peers' lesson. What was good about their lesson? What they did well. We want to accentuate the positive. Okay, but not ignore the negative, of course, and then we'll talk about ways to improve your lesson. So this is where we discuss, this is where you get feedback. Later in the afternoon, your tutor will help you plan your lesson for your next teaching time. So in the beginning, we will give you lots and lots of help in planning lessons. As the course continues, we will take a step back and let you be more independent. But we will always be here for you to help you plan your lessons. So you can contact us really any time to talk about your upcoming lessons. We have times for reflection. Halfway through the course, we will have a meeting to discuss your progress. This is the kind of thing we do in input. So dealing with vocabulary, language awareness. There's lots of language awareness on the course. And we try to keep the language awareness sessions as practical as possible, although we do have to go over the basics of the English grammatical system, so tense and aspect and mood we will cover, the finite verb forms, perfect, aspect, continuous aspect, these kind of things, modal verbs, conditionals. So we have separate sections on all of these aspects of English. And then phonology, we have 5 or 6 sessions on phonology where we will look at connected speech, liaison, stimulation, all of this kind of elision, this kind of stuff. Vowel sounds, consonant sounds. So we cover phonology. So that's the systems of English. And then we have sessions on vocabulary as well. As well as that, we cover methodology, different ideas of teaching, different approaches to teaching, a communicative approach, a lexical approach, all of this kind of thing, as well as more technical things like how to drill effectively. So methodology, these are the kind of the methodologies that we or the kind of movements in teaching more than anything else. Task-based learning. So again, sometimes the task will take precedence over the grammar. Maybe you'll teach in a cyclical style. So you give the learners a task, the learners will plan the task, the learners will execute the task, then reflect on the task. The teacher can listen to the language the students are using and then input after that or before that, and then move on to another task where they have to use language in a similar way. So maybe the focus of the lesson will be on how to write a questionnaire for the school, something like that. So there'll be a task that they have to complete. How to put together an advertising campaign for a wacky invention. So the teacher there will be listening, monitoring, seeing what language the learners are using, moulding how they use the language. A communicative approach. So here, student-to-student interaction is paramount. It's not just about the students speaking to each other. It means there's a communicative reason for the lesson. So they're not learning English to learn the present perfect. They're learning English so they can attend an interview or they go to the doctor. So there's actually a communicative need at the heart of every lesson. We looked at that. So the communicative approach is taking on the ideas of people like, not really taking on the ideas, but linked to people like Chomsky and Delheims, the language acquisition device. We learn language by engaging with other people. So it's absolutely fundamental that the students are talking to each other in the class and not just the teacher. And following on from this, we look at people like Stephen Krashen, the natural approach, where the students, where the inhibitions of the students have to be lowered. We want to lower the affective filter and activate the schemata of the students, activate the part of the brain which is responsible for storing that element of speech. People acquire language when they're ready to. So if we put people in situations when they're ready to, there's an order of acquisition of language. Certain structures come to us at certain times. We shouldn't force the production of structures. In the end, language is self-organizing. So if people are exposed to enough language, this is according to Krashen, okay, not to me, okay. If we expose people to enough language, eventually it will self-organize and it'll be okay. Nobody ever taught me how to speak correct English. And I just about speak correct English. I never studied grammar when I was a child. It organized itself eventually. And lots of research, Cambridge research, shows that this is in fact true. When students get to about C1, it does start to self-organize. But again, this is theory. It's not 100% fact. I mean, there's lots of error problems people have with fossilization, especially in India. Do they need to improve their English? Lots of different factors here, but these are the different approaches that we're using. We have a principled eclecticism, so we choose what's best from all of these movements or approaches to teaching. A lexical approach by Michael Lewis, which is also very important. Grammar is not primary language, according to Lewis. Vocabulary or lexis, chunks of language are more important than vocabulary. Vocabulary is primary. When we're babies, we don't learn the present perfect, do we? We learn mummy and daddy, we learn nouns, and then noun phrases, and then we tie them together eventually with grammar. But a problem with lots of language teaching is that the grammar is based around written English. It's not based around spoken English at all. If you listen to spoken English, it's not the same as written English. Very rarely do you hear full sentences being used in spoken English if two native speakers are talking to each other. It has a different grammar on its own. And lots of it's tied together by lexical phrases, lexico-grammatical phrases, chunks of language. We learn chunks of language rather than grammar rules. I was thinking lots of examples you can think of phrases which people use. Yeah, one expression people use, I couldn't care less, for example. How do people learn this expression, I couldn't care less? Do they learn subject, modal verb, bare infinitive, complement? No, they don't. They hear that, and they're attracted to that phrase for some reason. They like it. They like the person who said it. It's got something about it. They pick it up. They acquire that phrase. And I wouldn't consider it as a grammatical part of speech. I would consider it as almost a singular item of lexis, almost, which is then tied together to other chunks or fragments of language. So it's important in a communicative context to teach these chunks of language, as well as teaching grammar, because grammar is important as well, of course. If we only teach people chunks of language and idioms and phrases, it's a very poor way of speaking, because people can't be creative with their own language. They will just end up sounding like football players, one cliche after another. So we have to teach some grammar to enable people to be creative with their own language, to say unique things as well, which is what marks us apart from the animals, apparently. A direct approach as well, where you won't use the mother tongue, more action, more physical teaching. Okay, I'm going to speed up because I've been going on for too long. This is essentially about the communicative approach, which we've been talking about previously. So yeah, really with this, we just really want to center the lesson around real world tasks, going to the doctor. By the end of the lesson, the learner will be able to make a complaint on the telephone to customer services. By the end of the lesson, the learners will be able to write a love letter to their wife. By the end of the lesson, the learner, whatever your learners need to do, okay? And within that, we can incorporate grammar, vocabulary, lexis, pronunciation, all of these different things can come in that. What we don't want to see is people doing meaningless grammar tasks just for the sake of it. We don't want to see people writing 10 sentences in the present perfect. This is a completely unnatural thing to do, and it's completely divorced from reality. So we get lots of students who know the present perfect in speech because they've only been taught this in an abstract manner. So many students, have plus past participle, blah, 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 blah. This is the present. Is it? No. All right. So this is the issue. We want to move away from 15 sentences in the third condition. It doesn't really help. It just goes in one ear and out the other. I studied French in that manner, and it was pointless. It was absolutely soul-destroying experience. So we want to see real-world activities. As I say, there is a time and a place to study grammar, but for a reason. You're learning the grammar to do something else, right? On the course, we use a method, this paradigm, teaching paradigm, which is ESA. This is Jeremy Harmer's kind of idea. It was developed by a few people, but Jeremy Harmer, ESA, engage. So at the beginning of our lesson, if we have a 1 hour lesson, the first 10 minutes of the lesson, maybe 10 minutes, round about that, will be engage. So this is where we set the context of the lesson. In every lesson, we have a context or a theme, topic. What's the theme of the lesson? Is it education? Is it COVID? So this theme will run throughout the lesson. It will be recycled throughout the lesson. This is the beginning of our class. This is where we engage. We will get the learners talking to each other. We will play some music about the theme. We will teach some vocabulary related to the theme. But we will activate this part of the brain where this information is stored, as we have associated memories. We want to go from prior knowledge to new knowledge. So we want to link the new information to stuff that is already there. Okay, then it's more memorable. There'll be a link, kind of cerebral link going on there. The next, say, 25 minutes of the lesson, more or less, will be spent on study. So this is where we will see a presentation of some kind of target language. Presentation, but hopefully this will be an inductive presentation, although it could be led by the teacher. But we really are trying to encourage inductive presentation, where the students are working out the language for themselves, the rules. The students will match rules to examples from the text. The teacher can go around and help them. The teacher doesn't need to stand at the front of the class and tell the students everything they know about the present perfect. And then 1 hour later, no, we don't want that. We don't want every single rule of the present perfect to know what they need to achieve the task at the end of the lesson. So manageable. I think we will see a presentation practice activities of the structure. So maybe a controlled practice activity or a semi-controlled practice activity. Finally, we'll look at an activate stage where the students will be learning language creatively. Okay, I need to move on to the end of this. So we've got the lexical approach, which we spoke about, grammar, we've spoken about here. So on our courses, you will do, we do language awareness. So we will talk about the form and the function. So if you see here, present simple, the train leaves at 7 o'clock. What's the meaning here? Okay, so that's a timetable future, isn't it? Present continuous, we're having dinner on Saturday. So that's an arrangement for the future. I'm going to convert it into a restaurant. That's my intention, going to express an intention. Look at those clouds, it's going to rain. This is evidential future. So we do focus on form and function, but as well as that, and as importantly as that, we look at practice. So here's a game where we can practice these future forms of going to or will or something like that. So how can you set these activities up? How can you monitor them? So this is equally as important on the course as the grammar element. As far as phonology goes, we use this a lot. I mean, a lot of people learn IPA on teacher training courses. They may never use it. To be honest, it's the same. But after about 10 years, I use it again, and then I realised what a wonderful thing it was, how it could really aid my teaching. It was another string to my bow. I don't expect the students to know that this chart, but I can use it physically to help them work on their pronunciation. We use this to drill. We don't expect them to know. This is only something that we use as a springboard into work on pronunciation, drilling, right? So for example, these kind of words in English has a very low sound spelling correspondence. So people really struggle with this, with the pronunciation of these words, because there is no thing for Q, is there? There's no K sound. That's K. It's not Q. There's no Q. So people trying to say this word can be very funny in English. Worcester, I hear. Worcester. Not actually, it's 2 syllables, isn't it? Worcester. Worcester. I say it. Pronunciation. Syllables. Worcester. Not Worcestershire. Worcester. Especially in speech. Squirrel. Here we get in English we get words where there's silent letters, T, K. It's not listen, is it? It's listen. Again, silent letters here. Could. Again, many people are going to be pronouncing the B's here. Climb, but not climb. It's silent. Plumber. And in India, people add consonants because this is going to add consonants. We've got syllable-timed language, stress-timed language. It's very difficult to pronounce consonants one after the other. Malayalam is a syllable-timed language, so people always want to include a vowel sound between the consonants. So it's not film, it's film, not crisps. It could be crispies. But this is a result of L1 transfer. So we can use IPA here to drill. So it's not squirrel, it's squirrel. So we can see there's no Q. Q is squirrel. But we must use it to point out the sounds. We point out the sounds with the IPA. The students don't have to know. Everybody can know this is a K, can't they? We know this is K. You know, K. Squirrel. So we use it as a prompt to drill. Yeah, Worcester. How many syllables? 2 syllables. Okay, Worcester. Knife. Is there a K? Here? No. Okay, the pronunciation. Knife. What's this sound? I. We're going to elicit these sounds from the students. Knife. Listen. Could. Climb. So this is how we use IPA. We don't use it and expect the students to know. We're coming to the end now. So we're looking at the entry requirements of the course. Minimum age is 18 here. Educational background qualifications, enough to allow trainees to enter higher qualification education in their own countries. So you don't need a BA or an MA. You could have equivalent experience. Okay, so maybe you've been in the workplace, maybe you've done workplace training or something like that. The English level should be C1, which works out to IELTS 7. So you're supposed to be IELTS 7 across the board, right, in all of the skills. The demonstrating ability to learn how to explain the relevant features of English, willingness to work in a cooperatively, this is important, you've got to be part of the group, not just out for yourself, and potential for combined study, all right. So these are the entry requirements, of course. So this is the certificate from Trinity. As I said, there's no grade on a Trinity certificate. It's just a pass or fail. But from us, we will give you a certificate which will have our grades on it for you, for the different elements of the course. Just some information about CILA here. We've been running since 2013. It's more than 50 courses now, more than 500 trainees. And people who come to the course. It's not just Indian citizens. We have lots of people from the UK, the USA, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, Sri Lanka, South Africa, Nepal, Egypt, and Bangladesh. So we get people from all over the world who come to do this course. Here's some of our wonderful, lovely ex-trainees here. I'm sure if you go to the CILA website, you'll be able to see pictures of trainees in the past. So for more information on the CertTESOL syllabus, course, content, and its international acceptance, please visit the website, Trinity College London. So that's about Trinity in general, us in particular. This is the admission process here. So send an online application through www.cilakerala.com. Attend an interview face-to-face, telephonic or online. So we can interview you here, or we can do it on the telephone, or we can do a Skype interview with you. Make a seat for confirmation payments. So that's the price. Complete the pre-course tasks. So we will send you a task that you have to do before you join the course. It's not graded. It's just a course to prepare you for what's about to happen. Do the course. So now at the moment we're running 100% online course at the moment because of COVID-19. I'm not sure of the date of the next course, but Jamin will fill you in a minute on that. So we're online 100% now for the foreseeable future. We will see what happens later. And there's a special of 10,000 for the attendees of this seminar. Yes, so if you've attended this seminar and then you enroll, you get this discount for the course. 10,000 rupee discount. Okay, good deal. Very good deal. Okay, so you can watch testimonials and reviews of the course and visit the YouTube channel of Cochin International Language Academy. So information, the course is 5 weeks, full-time, face-to-face, Monday to Friday, 9:30 probably to 5, but maybe 5:30. We overrun often because we have lots to do. Delivery now fully online over Zoom, on-site later on. Yeah, so that we do that. We also run diploma later in the year and other courses probably which will be coming up soon, which we will get back to you on. So now that's it for me.